Well everyone, welcome to the 1800 subscriber special. Even though, of course, we are now like 1,000 subscribers past that, we are continuing with my attempts to catch up on these videos. And I said in the last one, the Skywarp video, that there's not many characters I can actually still do a top 10 for. Maybe Shockwave, maybe Optimus Primal, not many past that. But someone rightly pointed out that I could also do top 10 characters in a toy line. So instead of doing a top 10 Jazz video, for instance, I could do top 10 Transformers animated figures or top 10 movie figures. And for this, we're going to start out with my top 10 G1/G2 figures in my personal collection. A couple of quick rules. Yes, G2 figures can be included here. I don't have many of them, so I think it's just fair to roll them into G1. Alongside that, reissues will count. Reissues that involve new paint apps or new accessories will also count. Pre-G1 figures will count. That explains that orange Roadbuster back there. That said, I wouldn't include something like, say, the Tonka Devastator that came out a few years ago, because technically that's supposed to be a new character. In any case, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me, thank you so much for discovering me, and we are going to look now at the top 10 G1/G2 figures in my personal collection. I'm not gonna lie, making this top 10 was actually really hard. There were a lot of figures I had to give the boot, and I didn't feel great about it, but Cosmos had to make the list. He's a simple toy. He's a simple boy, but I still really like him. I think his proportions are actually really fun for a G1 toy. You know, he has these very skinny legs and the squat torso. His hands are guns, which is great, and even his little head, though very ill-defined, is still pretty cute. He looks like he's wearing like a little fez. I like him. The transformation's also very simple. Check this out. Boop, boop. Swinging down the arms. His head's still popping up, but you can fold that in and boom. It's the UFO mode. I don't know why, I've always had a massive soft spot for Cosmos. One of my favorite episodes of the G1 cartoon is the God Gambit, and it was kicked off by this goober crash landing on a planet. I really, really love Cosmos. I'm looking forward to doing the many toys of Cosmos. I just want to get a couple more figures, mess with a few more before I actually make that video, but yeah, I think this guy is just terrific. One of the best mini-bots, easily the most unique, and someone who has to stay a mainstay in my collection. Let's be clear about who I kicked off the list for this guy to make on it. So I have the early pre-Takara version of G1 Roadbuster. I have Swerve, Tailgate, Beachcomber, Huffer, Skywarp, Thundercracker. None of them are going to be on the list, because Action Master Blaster is on the list. Even Action Master Bumblebee and Inferno got kicked off the list, so why Blaster? Well, for one, he has the best name ever. He's Action Master Blaster. I love Action Master Blaster. If I didn't have Action Master Blaster, it'd be an Action Master Blaster disaster. And then at that point, maybe I would become a broadcaster, and then in that case, I would be an Action Master Blaster disaster broadcaster. Who could live in that world? Also, I just really like the Action Masters. I think they're cool. I know they're not the most posable things in the world, but I love the designs they gave to a lot of these characters. Blaster is no exception. That might still be my favorite Blaster head sculpt ever. And even though my guy is in pretty rough condition, it doesn't change the fact that this is still a really nice little toy of Blaster. I cannot wait to get Action Master Shockwave. I have him in my sights, but up until I get him, and maybe even after I get him, Blaster is my favorite Action Master. I mean, I had to give a little bit love to the combiners in this list, especially my favorite combiner in G1, that being Menasor. And here we have Dragstrip. I think this guy's just the best. Even if you don't know about the combination gimmick, he's still just a really good little figure. I love the colors on him with the little purple head and the blue face, as well as this very nice goldenrod throughout the body. I still have his gun, which is great. If you notice, it doesn't go into his fist, it goes in like the cuff. It's really cool, actually. I like that. And then to transform him, it's literally just bop and bop and bop. That's the cool thing about G1 toys, man, is they're nice and simple. But then check out this dragster. I know that this is like a specific car. Don't know who drove it. Don't know what races it was in. But I am happy that it's been immortalized as Dragstrip's vehicle mode, because it's a good F1 racer mode. Dragstrip's always going to be one of my low-key favorites. He might actually be my favorite Stunticon. And a big part of that is just because of how nice this G1 toy is. Real talk, in G1, the little guys were kind of where it was at. Nowadays, we all kind of passed over Core Class and Legends figures, but the mini-bots, they were rocking it. Braun here is number 6, and it's because I just love everything about this guy. He looks weird. Of course, no Braun has ever looked like this afterwards. They all look like the cartoon, but check out this weirdo. The super lanky legs, these weird claw arms, that cool Cylon face, the general, just proportions of it all. He looks so interesting. I want a modern toy of this design. No cartoon at all. I just want to see this design with modern articulation and modern, nuances in terms of aesthetic. Alongside that, his vehicle mode is pretty solid. Now, I'm not going to fully transform him just because the joints on mine are very stiff, and I have a hard time folding them back out if I actually close in the gaps. But here we go. Boop. You see what I mean here? Even just getting this guy into position is a bit hard. But if I were to fold these in, you would have your proper G1 Braun Jeep mode, a good Jeep mode. If you have a reissue of Braun, you can definitely mess with him and see how fun that transformation is, because it's mindless fun. I don't want to do it on my guy just because I am worried I might break him, but that does not change the fact that when I was making this list, Braun was easily going to make it, and if anything, I'm kind of surprised how low he wound up. At number 6, it has to be Kickback. I've always loved this little grasshopper dude. In terms of transformation, it's nice and simple. We're just going to fold those out, boop, and then wings up, baby. Twist the head around. Make it look like he's surprised to see someone coming over the bridge right before Cup, drives over his head, whatever happened in the movie. And then we open up his arms, and you have a really nice bug mode. I love Kickback's bug mode. The wings, the die-cast wings are what really sell it. And then, of course, robot mode, also super solid. You just go all the way back in. If you have the Legacy Kickback, you probably know this transformation well. It's basically the same transformation there with a couple extra bells and whistles. But I love my G1 Insecticons. Even this, look at this. He has a Tommy gun. Before I knew who Kickback was, that gun made me think that he was going to be a gangster. That's a big reason why I like Thunderhoof from RID so much, is he kind of reminds me of what I thought Kickback would be. But yeah, a great toy. Very simple, just like the rest of the Insecticons, and an absolute highlight, especially when it comes to just giving you a super solid looking robot mode. Oi, we're gonna have to move the camera for this one. Coming in at number 5 is one of my favorite Megatron toys of all time, the G2 Megatron. There's a few things that this guy brings to the table. 1, he's the first ever tank Megatron. That's his more or less standard vehicle mode at this point, so in that way, this is kind of historic. But 2, this guy is absolutely massive. He stands head and shoulders above Leader Class, Voyagers, Deluxes. You would have to get to Commander Class before you can get to a size of figure that can consistently be taller than him. But even past how tall he is, he's so wide and bulky. This guy would have been a massive bang for your buck back in the day, and it still kind of is. G2 Megatron doesn't go for as much as you might think, and that's because, unfortunately, his electronics are shot out very quick. Back in the day, you'd be able to push on his head and he'd have a little quip. You hear that? That little chipmunk noise? As the time goes on, it just becomes quicker and quicker until it completely burns out. So, whereas now it sounds like Chip and Del fall into their deaths, what it used to be was Megatron chanting, "Megatron attack!" I love this guy. He's a big, goofy, dumb figure. He can't do much. He basically has articulation here and articulation in the elbow. And there's just so many little jokes about it. Look at that tank turret. It just says big stick. That's awesome. I never knew Megatron was a Teddy Roosevelt fan. But yeah, there's a reason why I always gush over G2 Megatrons. There's a reason why I got the Super 7 G2 Megs. There's a reason why I got the G2 MDLX Megatron. I love this design. It's not my favorite Megatron design, but it's probably in my top 5 favorite Megatron designs, and I definitely like this design more than G1 Megatron. And for me, I don't want a G1 Megatron. I think that toy looks kind of dumb, it's not for me, but I love this guy, and he's always going to have a spot on my G1 shelf. If this were an objective list in which we were trying to talk about what is objectively, scientifically the best G1 toy, this guy would probably be number 1. But at number 4 on my personal list, it's G1 Soundwave time, as well as his Peck-in partner, Buzzsaw. Soundwave is just a revelation of a toy. He had articulation that far outstripped even normal action figures of his time, and he was probably the most articulated figure in the original G1 lineup. I mean, just look at it. You got a swivel up here at the head, swivel at the shoulder, a good single-jointed elbow, the wrist can go in and out. You have articulation down here in the hips, admittedly no side to side, but at least you can go up and down. You have knees that, admittedly, again, reverse, but at least you have knees, and you have the ankles. But the thing that makes Soundwave special is besides the articulation, he's a massive G1 toy. He's even taller than Optimus Prime, which was supposed to be the big figure of the original lineup, and he had one of the best gimmicks in all of Transformers with the cassettes. Buzzsaw and Laserbeak, this bird mold, is so good, I honestly thought about making it its own spot on the list. This is the only reason I was able to get Cosmos on the list, is I just combined Buzzsaw with Soundwave. But this figure in particular, the Condor that turns into the cassette, one of the most clever and amazing transformations in all of G1, and to this day, I'm always excited to see new Buzzsaws and Laserbeaks because they always have great tricks. Between these two, imagine getting this gift set for Christmas one day. You've never even heard of Transformers, but then for Christmas or for your birthday or for a holiday, you get this Soundwave and Buzzsaw. You get these two that integrate so perfectly. This would have been an absolutely spectacular duo of figures to get back in the day, and even now, it's still great. It's so good that they still give Soundwave Laserbeak or Buzzsaw in basically every figure he gets nowadays. And if you don't believe me, check out that Legacy United Soundwave coming out. And what do you know? One of the big selling points is that we're finally going to get Buzzsaw. Yeah, anyone who's seen the many toys of Jazz knows I'm a massive fan of this figure. At number 3, it is G2 Jazz. Still my favorite deco for this type of Jazz. I love the musical note on the hood. I love the rainbow on the doors. I think that this is just spectacular. My favorite Jazz figure, very possibly. And yeah, he's absolutely number 3 on the list because I'd honestly go so far as to say he might be the best toy from the 1984 lineup. The only two that I think even come close to Jazz are Soundwave and Optimus. And if I still had a G1 Optimus in my collection, he would definitely be on the list and he'd probably be higher up than Jazz. But in terms of just a toy by itself with no cassettes and no trailer and no roller, if you're just looking at the body of the toy itself, I think Jazz is the best. His transformation's great and his look is just iconic. One of the all-time designs when it comes to Transformers and toys in general. I love my little Jazz guy. And then we just take a massive left turn at number 2. I'm not gonna lie, there was a big part of me that thought about putting Misfire at number 10 on the list, because I was worried like, oh, people would think that's weird. But at the end of the day, it's my list. We're talking about the characters and the figures that I like the most. And I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I think G1 Misfire is one of my favorite G1 toys. For one, I think his design's great. I love this boxy robot look that you got in 1987 and 1988. And I don't have his Target Master anymore. I never had Aimless. But if I did, that's another big point for me because I love Target Masters. They might be my favorite gimmick in Transformers, them and Headmasters. Alongside that, you get some good articulation. Nothing in the head, but you do have a swivel at the shoulder. You have a very deep elbow. You have this articulation at the wrist. You have... Listen to that. Good ratchet. And a knee. And a little bit of toe articulation. You can actually get this guy into some good poses. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think he has as much articulation as Soundwave, but I think he might have more meaningful articulation than Soundwave. I'm trying to get him into a stepping pose. Can I do it? Maybe if I... There we go. That was the trick. There we go. You can get him into a running pose. What G1 toy can you get into a running pose? You can do it with Misfire. Alongside that, I really love his Space Jet mode. And there is a little bit of IDW bias poking through here. I love IDW Misfire. Titans Return Misfire is insanely expensive. I'm probably never going to own that figure. But I don't know if I need it because I got the G1 boy, and the G1 boy is more than rocking my socks. Plus, just look at those deep baby blues and those pouty lips. Are you gonna tell me that Misfire isn't a model? And finally at number 1, it's G1 Bombshell. I could give you a lot of kind of dumb reasons as to why he should be number 1. I like Bombshell, I like Rhino Beetles, I love how he showed up in IDW, I liked Hard Shell in Transformers Prime, I like the design, I love the purple, I like the yellow shoulders, I think the color scheme is just the best of any of the Insecticons. It's very bold and striking. I love the little gun that comes up above the head. I love his other normal gun down here, it's super wild looking. I love the Cerebro shells. There's a lot of things I like about Bombshell, but that's not the reason why he's number 1. In my 20 years of Transformers fan video, I told you guys that I got this guy for my birthday back in 2008, I believe. This was my dad's toy. This was his Transformer, the only one that survived his childhood. He gave it to me, and yeah, he's a little bit rough for wear. The stickers aren't great, and the chrome's coming off both his gun and his little, gun above his head. But it doesn't change the fact that, this was my dad's toy. And my dad wasn't in my life for much longer after that, but it was cool to still have this part of him. And during some bad times where I lost a lot of toys, and even lost my favorite toy, if there was one toy that I'm glad survived my childhood and made it with me to adulthood, it's this Bombshell. He is my favorite G1 toy. There's things to like him even without that personal connection. Again, transformation's great, and the articulation's solid for the day, and the design is incredibly strong. But this is entirely because this is almost like a generational toy to me. It's something that connects me to my dad, and for that, he's always going to be incredibly special in my collection. So, yeah, he's my number 1 G1 toy, and I'm really happy just to still have him kicking around with me. Bringing my 3 favorites back in, I think G1 is one of the most interesting toy lines to talk about in Transformers, and maybe just in toys in general. And not for the usual talking points, not because of Diaclone, not because of Microchange, not because of Bob Bubiansky and how he saw these characters. I'm not talking about all the usual talking points, I'm talking about just the feel of them. There's a certain charm to G1 figures. Unfortunately, many of them become incredibly fragile over time. There's a reason I did not try to transform G2 Megatron or G2 Jazz. Both those figures are starting to show their age more and more, and I'm worried about cracks. I'm worried about outright breakages. Yeah, they were made using die-cast, but die-cast with plastic makes horribly fragile toys. There's a good chance that, give it a couple more decades, there's not going to be any G1 toys left, and the ones that are probably going to be in the hands of the ultra collectors, or maybe toy museums in some, pipe dream of mine. But that doesn't stop me from always saying that if you just want to see the purest form of Transformers, if you just want to see what the toys were like before this mythos existed and before there was a pull or a nostalgia for these characters, go check out some of these original G1 guys. And don't just go for the show characters. Get some of the weirdos, like the Omnibots, or some of the later Target Masters. Get the Action Masters. Hell, get the Pretenders. I unfortunately sold my Octopunch a few years ago. I hate that I did, though, because that guy was crazy. I loved the Pretenders. I loved just how weird and creative, and sometimes disastrous, the G1 Transformers were. Which every figure a hit? No. Was every year a success? Absolutely not. But it was always kind of cool to see and talk about. And even now, looking at these guys, and specifically my little bug boy right there in the middle, all I can say is, it's not my favorite line to collect, it's not my favorite line to review, it's not my favorite line to talk about. but it's always a cool one to see be brought up.